Hello, everyone. We'll get started soon. Dr. Cleary should be joining in a second. Yeah, we're going to be talking about food allergies today, specifically food allergies and navigating them while in college. I just graduated last week, and it's definitely a challenge to navigate food allergies in college, especially when you've had your parents or someone else living with you helping manage some of those challenges when it comes to healthcare and also just like the daily experiences managing food allergies. It's definitely a very different scenario and it's a big burden to carry. It can be very overwhelming when you're in college. There's so many new environments. Maybe you're living with people who don't have experience with food allergies. Maybe you don't even have a kitchen. Maybe you're dealing with dining halls and are worried about that as well. Oh, I think let's see. I think it's loading. Thank you everyone for joining, by the way. If you have any questions at any time, comment them and we'll see if we can get to them. And if not, we can always, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. It's good to see you again.
I know, it's so nice to see you too. Anyways, we'll get started. I know we're running a little bit late. Hello everyone. If you don't know, my name is Jenna. I'm 22. I just graduated from college and I'm living in Los Angeles. When I was 18, I was diagnosed with mast cell activation syndrome after struggling with a lot of allergy-like symptoms really my whole life. So today we'll be discussing what it's like to navigate food allergies while being in college and some of the challenges that come with that. This session was developed by Vindico Medical Education and FAIR with educational grant support from Genentech, a member of the Roche Group. You can see more project information and any of that other information in the link that was posted by Vindico's account in the comments. And also, as a reminder, like I said a couple minutes ago, this video afterwards will be posted to my feed as well as that link. And if you have any remaining questions that we don't get to, we can also answer them in the comments over there. This is Dr. Kelly Cleary, Medical Director at Food Allergy Research and Education. This is just going to be a short Q&A session, and like I said, with an opportunity for any questions for any of you watching. So always comment your questions if you have them, and we'll get to them. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be back.
Yeah, if anybody that has been here for a long time, Dr. Cleary and I did another Q&A session about food allergies a year ago, so it's cool to be back here and to get to talk again.
Yes.
The first question I have and point of discussion is, food allergies can really impact people's social lives, and I think that's something that people don't realize. People who don't have food allergies often don't think about that. They don't realize how much it can impact social life and mental health, especially as a college student when there is so much more that you have to manage yourself. What advice would you give young adults who have food allergies that are starting college or are in college right now?
Well, so you hit the nail on the head. Food is everywhere, right? So, everywhere we go, we're going to be introduced to food, and college is no exception. We actually last night had a college chat at fair, and one of the parents who was on the call was saying even down to the things that bring together a dorm, right? The residents, the RA may have ice cream or a pizza party. So food is everywhere. So I think that when you're looking as a high school student entering college, really understanding that that transition process is going to happen. And for the first time, you've got to use your voice, right? A lot of times when we're younger, you've got your parents nearby, you've got other advocates for you. But when you get to college, you are using your voice, and really noticing that there can be allergens in things beyond food, so alcohol, and knowing alcohol's effect on your body and how that might impair or impact your decision making. So I think all of these questions need to be discussed with students with food allergies that are thinking and are headed to college.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think, before you go to college, there's always somebody else that's sort of responsible for that and hopefully helping you be included, whether it's at home and your parents can play that role or at school and a teacher can play that role. But, food is such a staple, like social thing that brings people together in society. And yeah, it can be really frustrating. I know I had a lot of experiences like that, even like my first week of school everyone after class, after our first big presentation, is like, let's all go out to eat together and celebrate. And I'm over here thinking, well, you know, I actually can't. And it's not even just that. It's like, okay, now I'm sitting in my dorm and I have a decision. I can either go out with them or I cannot. And if I decide to go out with them, then that means that I have to figure out what I'm going to do for food before and have that extra preparation. So it's not even about, sometimes it's way beyond avoiding allergens. It's there's so many other factors that we have to do and so many other things that we have to prepare for that can be really hard.
Yeah, and I think you've got to kind of think about the stuff that you probably learned throughout your life. And I know one of the things that I'm really big on, and I, am a pediatrician, but I'm a mom, and I have four kids, and one of them has, multiple allergies. And I always look at things where it might be a social event and it may be somewhat difficult, right? He's allergic to eggs and there's an Easter egg hunt, right? So that kind of doesn't go together. But I always said in my head, and what I teach him to do is not, we can't do this. It's, how can we do it safely? And exactly what you're talking about. Like sometimes that just means modifications. And for food allergy, patients, adults, families, that means planning, right? So I still really go into different situations where I know the first time as a parent that he said to me, I'm going to go out to lunch with my friends, my immediate thought was, no way. And then I was like, well, how can he? Like, how can we make that happen? And I hope that college students kind of take that with them too, because life is about going out there and trying new things and being social. So I think it's super important that that is something that we keep in mind.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think my like life motto that I live by is just doing everything in whatever way that I can. And when you come from that perspective, I think the hardest part is just that sometimes that feeling of isolation that comes with having a different experience as everybody else. And honestly, to anybody watching this, all I have to say is if you're around people that don't accept the way that you have to do things, like going to a restaurant and not eating, if people don't accept that, those aren't the people that you want to be around, because they should understand. And that doesn't mean that people are always going to be able to accommodate you, like change a restaurant to find a place that you can eat at. But as long as you're okay with being there and not participating in the same way as everybody else, if the other people aren't, like that's their problem, not yours.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think it is, you know, I see like even our teens in at fair as they are, growing up and going from teen to adulthood. I see them, talking about those situations and they've navigated them their whole lives. And now they really do surround themselves with people who accept them as they are and what they can do. And in most instances, I feel like actually advocate for them and will switch the restaurant. And, that's when you got good friends.
Exactly. In college, you're not only managing your own allergies and social situations and like the college experience, but oftentimes you've moved away from home, and that means like a new healthcare team. So, what do you think are the most important ways that healthcare providers can support young adults with food allergies? And also, what are some of the things that you can do as a person going into college, seeing a new healthcare team to help like connect those dots and really help them understand and not have like a any big problem with trying to get that care and all of that frustration that can come with that?
So I think good news, and you're old enough to have seen the progress in food allergy, right? Like I think people who are 7 or 10, they think that there's progress all the time. But for people who've had this, if you look even back 10 years ago, we didn't have options, right? So if you went to your healthcare provider, it was avoid the foods that you're allergic to and go out and be safe and carry your epinephrine, right? But now healthcare providers are having different conversations with food allergic patients. And, the conversations that they're having are, we have come a long way and there may be options that you would be interested in to pursue. And I think that's where it comes in for individualized care, shared decision making, where doctor and patient, and for college students, doctor and college student, right? Like at that point, it's the college student using their voice and talking to the doctor. But there have been breakthroughs in the last, few years that are really promising. Oral immunotherapy, and we know that with that, the FDA has approved Palforzia for peanut allergy, omalizumab, which is a monoclonal antibody. So it's a biologic. All sounds very big, but all it does is really, we know in food allergy that our body thinks that we're in trouble, tries to fight off a threat or a harm, makes a lot of IgE, which then could kind of have all of that, mast cells released and histamines, and omalizumab blocks that IgE. So it really raises the threshold for how much of an allergen someone can tolerate before having a reaction. Still avoiding the food and carrying epinephrine, but it's like a safety net that there may be a little bit more room before severe reaction. And then the other things are, new epinephrine options too. So really talking about the innovation that has come, because those conversations that healthcare providers can have are, really, really important. And last night, actually, on that college chat, one of the moms said that she had an experience with her allergist, so talking about healthcare providers and college students. And the healthcare provider actually started to talk to her college student about like things like kissing and drinking, and you've got food allergies. This is how you manage those. So I think healthcare providers could do so much. It starts with shared decision making and talking about those options that we've waited for so long, and then can go into all of those social impacts of food allergy that sometimes, we may overlook.
Yeah. And like you said, there's so many new innovations, and it's also exciting just to see what's going to come about in even in the next few years as well. And I'd also say to anyone watching and anyone that has food allergies and is navigating that college experience to also look at what your school has. I think a lot of schools have really great resources outside of even like the healthcare realm of like, what kind of accommodations does you have for school, what kind of accommodations do you have for housing, what kind of accommodations they have for the dining halls. I know that was something that my school had, but I never really used because I honestly just didn't know it existed. And I think with any of that kind of thing, oftentimes those resources don't get used because people just don't know about them, but be the one to go and search because they probably do exist.
We're seeing that even if you look now at what colleges are doing now compared to 10 years ago, there's so much more awareness, which is amazing for the food allergy communities. Lots of colleges have, top 9 free stations. When you're going to see a college, if you're looking into college and you're a high school student, there are things that you're probably going to do differently, right? Maybe talking to the dietitian on campus and making sure there is a dietitian on campus. Looking at the process, right? The process of how they would help accommodate your food in a cafeteria or a dining hall. Because you definitely want to be eating safely, number one, but you want to be included too. So you want to make sure it's not taking, 45 minutes for your food to come out. And then by then you're supposed to be in your next class and you weren't able to do this. I always tell students going in to ask about how do emergency services work on your campus, right? How does that work? And then also, as you said, accommodations, because there are many schools who will provide accommodations that are different for students with food allergies, maybe access to a kitchenette or a kitchen or something in your room. So lots of questions to ask, when you're going into college and making this huge transition.
Yeah. And even just talking to people about it, it's so many people have food allergies that it's sometimes feels very isolating, but it's so likely that there's someone in your class, in your dorm, on your floor that also has food allergies. And when you're used to having people like your parents around all the time that know about your food allergies, are able to help you speak up when you feel like you can't, and also who know what to do in an emergency, that can make you feel safe. And not having that can feel very uncomfortable and overwhelming. And just talking to people about it can feel very difficult to do that, but it's so important and it can be so helpful.
And so many students with food allergies on campuses, like I think one of the greatest things that a new student can do is find someone there that had a food allergy who they're talking to, right? Because that person, just as you said, you didn't know about what, was there until, you had your own ways about you. But if you start that at the beginning, that person sharing all of the things they've learned, and now that student can take advantage of it from the get-go.
Yeah, even the other day, my teacher brought in some candy for our last class, and I saw that there were peanut M&Ms, and I was like, I don't want to be that girl that's saying that, but I know my friend in the class also has a peanut allergy, so I spoke up and I was like, please keep me and Ellie safe. Like, please keep us both safe. Don't eat the peanuts. And people listen, and that's like an easier way of approaching those kinds of situations. Because yeah, it can feel sometimes you're like asking for a lot, but it's not asking for a lot to keep yourself safe.
And I love that you advocated for yourself. Like, that is the biggest thing that I think incoming, and obviously you're out of college, but incoming college students need to take that role and not be afraid to say what they need to keep them safe.
Yeah. Well, anyways, our time is up for today. Thank you so much for answering all these questions and for coming on and taking time to talk today. To anyone watching, like I said, this live video will be placed on my Instagram feed and also posted to Vindico Medical Education's Instagram and YouTube pages. So if you want to watch this again, if you missed something, and also if you want to ask any more questions in the comments over there, you're very welcome to. Thank you so much to everyone watching. Thank you, Dr. Cleary.
Thank you, Jen.
And this was really great.
Thanks for having me again. I hope to see you again next year.
Yeah, I hope to see you soon.
Take
Bye.
care.